Hi everyone, my name is Aaron Bix from Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. I'm the Associate Director of International Student Admission here. And I just wanted to take a few minutes this morning to talk to you a little bit about the application and admission process for U.S. universities in general and about our university in particular. I'm hopeful that the information I can provide will be helpful to you regardless of the institutions you end up applying to in the U.S. or where you ultimately may go to school. I'll be talking mostly about our undergraduate bachelor's degree admission, but also a lot of this can also be applied to students who are interested in going to graduate school to get their master's or their PhD. So you can see hopefully the PowerPoint presentation I've put together. We call it Admission 101, and just how to navigate the U.S. admission process. The U.S. admission process can be a little complex. There's no national organization or a body that coordinates this, so all of us, thousands of U.S. universities, are on our own in how we manage our processes. So they can all be a little bit different, which can be confusing, and we'll get into that a little bit more. So because of those differences and because it can be a little complicated, we always recommend that students start early, and that really begins early in your high school career. Starting early includes taking rigorous courses, taking courses that are challenging for you, that will best prepare you for university once you're there. We want to see students who've taken a lot of math, science, social science, things like that. That really gets them prepared for whatever they ultimately choose to major in once they're at the university. You also have to prepare for entrance exams, for tests. If you're an international student whose first language is not English, English language proficiency tests are often required. Those would be things like the TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language, or the IELTS test are the big two that we see here. In addition, these things don't take quite as much time, but also take a little prep time. Our recommendation letters, most schools will have a recommendation letter requirement. At our school, at Miami University, we require one letter of recommendation. Other schools may require more. Ours is usually from a school counselor, if a school has someone who's doing that position, or from a teacher, and that works just as well. In addition, the application will ask students to list their activities and experiences. So you want to start thinking about those early. Think, what are you involved in? Are you involved in anything outside of your high school experience? Are you doing community service in terms of volunteering somewhere? Are you a member of a club? You participate in sports? Those types of things. You want to kind of build that, not necessarily try to get as many as you can, but find a few things that you're passionate about and that you are involved in, because they will often ask you about those on your university application. So it's always good to have a few of those as well. So that's kind of the overall arching, but then of course the most important piece when you're preparing for university, and this ties back into the strength of your curriculum and the types of courses you're taking, are the academic factors. What are we looking at? What should you be thinking about? What's your grade point average? What are your average marks, your average grades? That's going to be one of, if not the most important factor when folks review your application. We see this less and less, but a lot of we also look at the student's class rank, where it's very helpful, can be helpful as a comparative measure, where you third out of 10 students, where you third out of 500 students. It kind of speaks to where you fit in comparatively with your peers. Like I said, especially in the United States, we're seeing less and less high schools, secondary schools provide this information. So we don't see it as much as we used to. And the other part is standardized test scores, and that does go back to the English proficiency scores for international students, the TOEFL or the IELTS, but also the SAT or the ACT. That's the big one that we get a lot of questions about, that a lot of students are worried about. They're concerned about it. They think it is going to affect, be kind of the deciding factor in their admission status. And it's probably not as critical of a factor as students think, but it's probably more critical of a factor than than we may let on sometimes. So it is important, but not the only thing that's taken into consideration. And then going back again, at Miami University in Ohio, it is something that we really do look at closely for every single applicant, whether they're from the United States, from China, from India, from Korea. What is that curriculum that they're taking? Are they taking their you know, academic courses all 4 years of their secondary school? So that is really as important as this test scores, class rank, and grade point average. So all these academic factors are things that we're going to be looking at when a student applies and we review their application. And then the final thing, most schools, including ours, does require an essay. We require one essay. It's part of the Common Application essay, and I'll get to that a little bit more later. But that's something else you want to put some thought into as well. The essay is really the one, excuse me, the one spot on the application where students can express themselves. They can tell us what the other things don't show. What does your grade point average, test scores, activities, curriculum, what does that paints a picture, but what doesn't it say? What doesn't it say about you? What makes you unique? What differentiates you from other students? And that's really where you can use the essay or the writing sample to do that, because you really have so much more freedom there than in anything else in the application process. Now, in the United States, some institutions receive a lot of applications for a very few number of spots. Others receive a lot of applications, but they have a lot of spots. And there's others that are considered more open admission institutions. So, you know, some schools may only select 1 out of 10 applicants for admission. Others may pick half, and so on, all the way up to open admission institutions, where as long as you've completed secondary school and the equivalent of a U.S. high school diploma, you're going to be eligible to enroll there. Small private, there's certainly a variation in the types of schools. Small private colleges can often be more selective, and they can run the gamut from those, where they maybe have a total enrollment of maybe just 1,000 or a couple thousand, all the way up to large public universities that would enroll 50,000 students. They may have more applications, but they certainly have a lot more spots too. At Miami University, we're somewhere in between there. We consider ourselves a mid-sized institution. We have about 17,000 students, and we're moderately selective in that, you know, for international students, a little less than half of the students who apply are going to be offered direct admission to the university. The other thing that's kind of unique to U.S. education are the community colleges. Community colleges are 2-year institutions, and they tend to be open enrollment, so students who have a secondary school diploma can enroll there. They can go and complete their first 2 years of a 4-year U.S. bachelor's degree. And if they do well, there are opportunities to transfer to 4-year universities, including very selective ones, increase greatly. And certainly a lot of U.S. universities, public universities, small liberal arts colleges are interested in enrolling these transfer students from community colleges there. The experiences they pick up there are certainly looked well upon and are very well received. Another thing you want to think about, we're not only the type of school, are you interested in that small liberal arts kind of college? Are you interested in that larger institution? Are you know, the programs that are offered, and how those can also be selective within an institution. For example, a large public university could have a fairly flexible, I guess you could say, admission rate, but certain programs in that university may be more selective. For example, at Miami University, we have a direct admission process for our business school, so it's kind of a 2-step process. You can be admitted into the university here, but it takes an extra step to be admitted into a major in our School of Business. So not everyone who wants to be in the business school can be admitted there. Often students are admitted into an undecided major if they're acceptable for university admission, but not necessarily for admission to the business school. Very similar how things work for an honors college. Those are usually a division or a division within a larger institution that's really looking for the the most highest achieving, the highest ability students in that applicant pool. So they'll take a very small percentage of the total admissions and offer them admission into the honors college. Nursing schools can also be quite competitive within a university, and so not everyone who wants to study that can meet those requirements to continue on in nursing school. And finally, one that we see a lot here are the creative arts. They often have a separate application process. You can be admitted into the university, for example, but to be accepted into our architecture or art programs, you have to submit a portfolio of your work, and then that is judged to determine admissibility into the architecture or art major. Similarly, for music, you can be admitted into the university, but the music major would require a separate audition or submission of a performance CD or audio tape or something like that. So you always have to consider those different programs and how they can kind of be a subset of any university you're looking at, and they may have very additional requirements or separate requirements or more selective requirements. So just something to consider when looking at an institution. Things that we'll consider when looking at students beyond kind of what I've already talked about, like the grades and the test scores and the essay, are the personal factors. And I think this is unique to U.S. universities in that we're looking at things beyond just test scores, beyond what's very black and white, beyond entrance examinations. We're looking at things. What are your extracurricular activities? Do you have a special passion for something? Do you volunteer and do things? And, you know, is that something you can bring with you to the campus that would enrich the campus? Similarly, for special talents, I mean, are you a very, very good musician? Would you add to our symphony or orchestra? Certainly that's taken into consideration when looking at applications for review. Special talents can also, in the United States, certainly include athletics. Are you being recruited to participate in an intercollegiate athletic team? Other things that can sometimes be looked at by U.S. universities are your family history. Do you have brothers and sisters that go to school here? Have your parents gone to school here? Do you have links to the university that are strong in that, and it would can add to something to continue that connection. So kind of gone through quite a bit in terms of what we're looking for on an application, different things that can be considered for admission, variables such as certain programs or majors having additional requirements. So what are your options in the whole process? Well, I mean, it certainly is a process, so we want you to embrace it, to really kind of take hold of it and own the process and do your research and look and see what's out there, seek and find, see what might be the best. If we go beyond what you know, maybe your friends have told you about what schools would be good fit, or what are the good schools, or you know, what are the good locations. You really have to think big picture here and think about what's going to be the best thing for you. And definitely the way to do that, because as I mentioned at the beginning, we're all different here. We all have slightly different processes. We all have slightly different deadlines, and so definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. That's why we're here. That's why our staffs are here, to help students answer their questions so they can find the best place for them. And that's really why we're all kind of doing this job that we do. We're really looking to find the best fit for students. And like I was saying before, you know, not only all of our institutions are different, our applications processes are different. Major requirements, like I was talking about, business school at our institution has more stringent requirements. Creative arts majors like architecture and music have additional requirements. You want to look too in the application type in terms of are we using a kind of can work two ways. Are we using a common application, an application that you can submit to more than one school, or does this institution that you're interested in have its own application that you must complete? At Miami University, we use the common application, so it can be used for multiple schools. Also, when you're looking at application type, you want to think about, does the institution have an early decision program where if you apply under that program and you're accepted, you're committed to attending there? Do they have, or instead, do they have an early action program where students who can apply early receive a slightly earlier decision but aren't committed to attending? Or another one, especially with international students we see a lot, is are they on rolling admission? Meaning if you apply in December, you could get a decision in January, but you could apply in February and get a decision in March. So they kind of make decisions as they go along. And that's something you'll see at open admission schools for sure, but also maybe in certain subsets of students. For example, at Miami, we have a very rigid kind of early decision, early action, regular decision process, 3 different deadlines, 3 different application notification times, but those are actually not applicable to international students, where they are more considered international transfer students are admitted more on a rolling basis. You see the students do university have paper versus online application. I don't think you'll see very many paper applications, but if for some reason you would need to have a paper application and can't complete an online application, that's something you could ask the institution for. Definitely pay attention to deadlines because, as I mentioned, all of us are different, so we're all going to have different deadlines. Our main deadline for international students set is February 1st here at Miami, and it's for our U.S. students also for first-year admission, but our transfer student deadline is not until the end of May. Other schools may have all of their application deadlines much later in March or April, or some may be even already passed, be in December. So definitely need to be cognizant of deadlines. It's certainly a very, especially if you're applying to a more selective school, a very quick way to get yourself ruled out of contention for admission is to apply late. Interviews. Many schools will have interviews either as a requirement or as an option. We don't require it here, but it's certainly an option if students are here on campus. We'll also do those if we happen to be out traveling in the student's home country. But other schools, especially more selective ones, will have required interviews. So you'll want to check into that too and check out what the options are for completing that if you're not living nearby the university you're applying to. A common application, as I mentioned, is something that is an application that can be used for applying to multiple schools. There's about, I don't know if that number is even accurate, there was certainly over 500 U.S. universities that are now using this application. It's an online application. You only have to complete it once, and it can be submitted to multiple schools. Most schools, including Miami, we have a page at the end that would be specific to us that asks questions that are Miami specific. So that one you would have to complete for each school. But the rest of the application would be standard for all the institutions you're applying to. On the member page, which is the Miami page of it, that's where we ask you questions about housing or about your major, things that would be specific to our university. Again, the common application opens in August of almost a year before students would enroll. So I always encourage students to apply early, give us a chance to process those applications and give you a chance to make sure you have all of the information you need submitted so that we can review and get a decision out to you. Many institutions in Miami certainly takes pride in this. We talked about all of the different factors that are required for the application that are considered, things like grade point average, essays, extracurriculars. Like the question I get often is how are those weighted? What's the most important thing? Well, we like to say that it's a holistic process. We look at everything together. We look at it comprehensively. So we look at everything you're doing. Yeah, we also look at how that compares with the other folks that have applied, because we do have limited spots. We look at what students can add to the campus, either academically, through special talents, through their previous work, through things they've done later. So each application is looked at one at a time. At our institution, we look at the curriculum you've taken, we look at the grades you've achieved, we look at the test scores you've earned, we'll read your essay, we'll read your recommendation letter, we'll look at your activities you've been involved in outside of school and see how does that compare with other students at your school, and then how does that compare with our applicant pool. We certainly understand that not everyone has the same opportunities to do different things. Some people have to have are working while they're in high school, and so maybe they don't have time to be as involved as other students who don't have to have employment. So we look at everyone's individual situation, and then based on that, try to find them as the best fit. Again, considering the things that we can see straightforward, kind of the transcript, what your course is taken, what grades did you earn in those courses, and how have you done on your tests. I mean, are you going to be a good candidate based on those variables for success, to be successful here? And then to kind of get more of the context, we'll read the essay and the recommendation letter. How did you earn what you've earned? That's how I kind of read applications. I look at the kind of the black and white things, the very cut and dry, the grades, courses, scores. Okay, this is how the student has done. Let's see the kind of the environment in which the student was operating. And then I'll read their essay, their recommendation letter, things like that, look at their activities and experiences. And then we kind of sum all that up and try to make that determination on if a student is a good fit for the university. Now, kind of wrapping up here, for international students, there are some additional requirements. You need to do some additional things to get your student visa before you can come to the U.S., before you can come to Miami University and start your studies. And this does place an additional responsibility on the student to submit these items beyond the academic things, beyond the application that we were saying. So what we do is we require students to also submit their financial paperwork that we would need to issue I-20 visa documents. That would include a bank statement, financial form that we have for students, copy of their passport so we can make sure we have their name right on those documents, because the government doesn't like it when you don't have your name spelled right on your I-20. So we double check all of that. So that's kind of the step two, in a way, often step two at most schools. You submit those, we'll, make sure you're acceptable for admission academically, and then we make sure you meet the financial requirements to get an I-20 visa document actually come. I mean, many institutions will have some scholarships to help students, but even then, full 100% scholarships are very, very rare. So students most often need to submit some form of financial support so they can pay whatever costs will be required outside of any scholarships they've earned. Certainly, our responsibility of our admission office here at Miami University and admission offices in general are really to find the best fit for you and to help you find a good match in terms of the school, location, selectivity, majors offered, everything like that. So that's really our primary goal. And it is, as I mentioned, comparison based. We're looking at how you've done, but we have limited slots. So it's not only how you've done, it's how you've done compared to people in a similar situation as you. A lot of choices. Students often, I think, especially international students, can sometimes limit themselves in terms of the types of schools they're looking for, and I think they need to, you're best served to open yourself up to consider a lot of different things, and that way you'll be able to it really increases your chances of finding the best fit. Don't limit yourself to 3 schools, and if you don't get into those, give up on the process. There's a lot more out there. And then, of course, it's good advice for all of us. Set your goals and early in terms of if you want to study in the U.S. and then work toward them, because as we've just learned in the past 25 minutes. There's certainly a lot of steps, a lot of things to consider, and and, and the good news, however, is that we're all here to help you do that, and we're happy to do so. So anyway, that's all that I had, and I want to wish everyone luck on the process, and let us know if we can provide any further help. We're happy to do so. I'll be here just briefly to answer some questions. And if we don't have any, I would just like to thank everyone for their attention, and hopefully speak with everyone soon. All right.